Billy Wilder, World War II refugee, notable wordsmith, social deviant, and... Billy Wilder, unsung hero of classic Hollywood films. Given his body of work, it's pretty incredible how little name recognition this guy has. As best I can tell, this is YouTube's first proper ranking of the director, other than an episode of Profiles with Malone and Mantz, an IMDb user score regurgitation, a slideshow, and whatever this is supposed to be. Not even Watchmojo has a top 10 for the guy. And Watchmojo has a video on the top 10 movie oral sex scenes. Good job, guys. Anyway, the point is, I feel this man has not been given his due credit in the digital age, and as I discuss some of his films, I think others will agree. Whether dramatic or comedic, Wilder's flicks largely dealt with mischief and odd circumstances, putting the audience's entertainment as priority number one. Unlike the films of, say, Stanley Kubrick, nearly everything to love about a Wilder project can be found at face value, and that's not to say his movies are any worse by definition, rather they're good in a different way. Over the course of 52 years, he wrote dozens of films and directed 26 of them, those he directed being the portion of his work that deserves the most admiration. In preparation for this video, I watched all of them at least once. This took some effort as many of his movies are mediocre and some suck ass, but fortunately there are enough classics and gems to merit a top 10 and enough controversial works to make it entertaining. Exploring the works of such a unique filmmaker has been rewarding despite a few bombs, and I think you guys will enjoy hearing about the schlock alongside works of genius. So sit back, relax, open up another tab for this guy's IMDb page, and let's do this thing.
Wendell Armbruster Sr. was a man for all seasons. Permesso? Permesso. I mean, Avanti.
For better or worse, Avanti is unlike any movie I've ever seen. The best I can describe it as is a relaxed yet wacky adventure with classic cinema philosophies in the body of a more contemporary film with a European feel. It's not even close to a great film, but we needed 10 movies for a top 10, and Avanti is, in my opinion, worth a watch. Plus, the beautiful country in which it takes place is well showcased, and it's neat to see a Wilder film where he could show boobs and say fuck and stuff. On that note, Avanti certainly panned out better than most of the late Wilder films. Though it's probably best classified as a comedy, Avanti won't make you laugh often, rather it's heartwarming throughout, and if I had one word to review this movie with, it would be charming.
Total, 41,020 marks, or $10,255.
You mean I've been a capitalist for 3 hours and already I owe $10,000?
That's what makes our system work. Everybody owes everybody.
That's the one.
Go to most any IMDb page of a lesser appreciated Wilder film and you'll find somebody lobbying for that movie as Wilder's forgotten, lost, or underrated masterpiece.
Masterpiece. It's a matterpiece.
Turns out most of these movies are mediocre at best, so congrats to Gavin 6942, because this is it. This is Wilder's most underrated movie. I found it, guys. I watched all the movies. This one's pretty good. 1, 2, 3 is great because it has what many of Wilder's weaker comedies lack: energy. Look at his very next film, Irma, Douce, and nearly every joke falls flat because the project is tired, the comedic punches are sluggish, and when comedy is concerned, timing is everything. 1, 2, 3's humor isn't as timeless as some of the films higher up this list, but the movie's sheer vigor is appealing, and it's easy to enjoy the movie as it crescendos into a manic merry-go-round of sorts by the end. Throughout, the comedy is clever and rapid fire. If one bit of humor doesn't tickle you just right, there's always another joke around the corner that may. Furthermore, the events unfold quite naturally, again, unlike some of the director's other films that require a periodic plot jumpstart. It's a shame Wilder never worked with any of the actors in the project ever again, because they brought a unique spin to the director's style of humor that I find more enjoyable than the approach most of his films have. Furthermore, except Horst fuckholes, they're pretty good actors that have solid chemistry with one another. And Wilder's choice to use Coca-Cola as essentially the embodiment of capitalism opposed, of course, to Soviet Russia is pretty clever and allows the movie to explore some interesting themes. The script is sharp, the direction on point. Above all, the movie clearly aims to entertain, and I found it highly entertaining. That's not something I can claim everyone will agree with, but if I don't at least partially use my gut reaction as a gauge for these kind of movies, I'm just an algorithm. 1, 2, 3 isn't about making you feel something extraordinary, it's about light humor and a good time, and to that end, the movie succeeds.
And it's a teeny with a yellow polka dot bikini. So in the locker, she wanted to say.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys like that. They take a bottle and put it on a shelf. All they want to do is just look at it. They don't even take a corkscrew along just to make sure. And all of a sudden, they grab the bottle, bite off the neck.
Ballsy as hell. The Lost Weekend is the 40s equivalent to Trainspotting or Requiem for a Dream, showcasing the destructive nature of alcoholism in a time when the issue was primarily depicted in a comedic way. That said, this movie did come out in 1945, and even considering Wilder's tendency to push boundaries to their near breaking point, there's only so much that could be portrayed in a movie at that time if you hoped for even modest success. This movie won Best Picture, by the way. The Lost Weekend is also visually one of the director's greatest works, and it represents him at his trippiest. There are many scenes that help the audience grasp what a destructive addiction like this can do to someone, offering what must have been a revolutionary perspective for audiences of the day, the impact of which has diminished with time but is still notable. Altogether, the movie looks pretty good, but the greatness of the film is indisputably due to a stellar script. One scene in particular involves the protagonist squirming in a theater as the urge to indulge in a drink overtakes him. I consider this a brilliant way to convey the inescapability of addiction. It's a crafted circumstance that shows the audience something, driving home a point better than any amount of raw dialogue could. My biggest reservation with The Lost Weekend is a symptom of the era, and that the greatest thing to praise about the movie is its mature approach, and yet it's still very much a movie, something the audience can easily distance themselves from as simple entertainment. And the conclusion is a bit too neat. Nevertheless, this is still a very good film that deserves props for remaining relevant to this day and exhibiting serious technical ability.
Hey, buddy. How'd you like to make 4 bids?
I'd like it fine.
Okay, then buy me a half-fare ticket to Stevenson, Iowa. Papa?
If you like a particular film starring Marilyn Monroe and Jack Lemmon that may or may not appear later in this video, I can't see you having anything but a good time with The Major and the Minor, as many of the things to appreciate about that film to a slightly lesser degree can be found in this one. The premise of the film is a woman trying to pass as a child in order to save on train fare. Classic Wilder mischief that's still harmless enough for the audience to root for the woman. And the woman is a sharp character portrayed by the talented Ginger Rogers. Even though much of the film involves her infatuation with a certain male character by the era's standards, she's got a pretty good head on her shoulders and is a delight to watch. Over Monroe's sexuality in Some Like It Hot or The 7-Year Itch, and Hepburn's charm in Sabrina or Love in the Afternoon, Rogers takes the cake for her wit, personality, and intuition in The Major and the Minor. Aww. While this is generally a pretty light movie, it does have some value in portraying our heroine's disgust at the forwardness of men and the way they see women as objects. However, that's second to the entertainment value of the film. The Major and the Minor knows what it is and what its audience wants. Sure, in this fashion it follows some familiar beats, but the flick delivers the laughs, smiles, and satisfaction that only this kind of movie can. And beyond the somewhat formulaic structure, it's hard to believe this was the director's American film debut. Scenes are well choreographed, the cinematography gets the job done, and you're provided with the sense that the director functioned well as a director, as the film comes together quite nicely. Many of the few who have seen this movie may call it a personal pick, but I honestly consider it one of Wilder's finest works.
The question is, Frau Helm, were you lying then? Are you lying now? Or are you not, in fact, a chronic and habitual liar?
Wilder films aren't something you necessarily need to ease yourself into. That's one of the greatest things about them. They're oriented with being entertainment that film buffs and casual viewers, uprights and hooligans, dogs and cats, gifs and gifs can all appreciate and enjoy. But if you'd still like a hook, a movie to get you into the whole Billy Wilder thing I'm going on about, Witness for the Prosecution is the way to go, because this thing is just one giant lump of raw entertainment. I can't say this is a movie with a profound moral, but on a fundamental level, it's fantastic. And the script is based on a play by Agatha Christie, so you know you're in for the cinematic equivalent of a real page-turner. Remember Charles Laughton from Spartacus? You know, arguably the best part of that movie? Let's talk about Charles Laughton for a bit. In Witness for the Prosecution, Charles Laughton is really good. Again, we have a Wilder film that holds up, and any dated elements add charm rather than awkwardness. The movie is charismatic to the core and what I imagine as the perfect night at the movies back in 1957, which the way they handled the very fact that this movie has a some very light spoilers about to drop. I mean, just real vague general stuff, but if you've seen this movie, I think you can understand my desire to preserve the magic of the first viewing of Witness for the Prosecution. So if you haven't seen this movie, there's a time code you can skip to avoid any spoilers whatsoever. Also, an annotation or a link. This will take about 30-40 seconds. The way they handled the very fact that this movie has a fantastic twist ending back in the day with a courteous plea to the audience to not divulge to anyone the secret of the ending of Witness for the Prosecution is amazing, and something that not should, needs to come back. Make it like a bookend with the piracy as a crime notice, where at the end of every movie they remind you not to be a fucking idiot and spoil key plot points of the film for those who haven't seen the movie yet. Anyway, Witness for the Prosecution might lose value with repeat viewings, but it's still well shot, edited, directed, written, acted, paced, and it's just good to have those things down in a movie.
You're reading the papers all the time that people shoot themselves? Believe me, it's not that easy. I mean, how do you do it? Here? 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 You know where I finally shot myself?
Where?
Here.
In the knee?
While I was sitting there trying to make up my mind, a cop stuck his head in the car because I was illegally parked, and I tried to hide the gun under the seat, and it went off. Ow!
That's terrible.
It was a year before I could bend the knee.
It's amazing how so many people can love The Apartment for different reasons. For some, it's a stick-it-to-the-man jab at the corporate ladder system, some love it for its social commentary on love and relationships, and still others insist this is a wonderful comedy, which it's not. It might have moments of optimism, but this is a film with an apparent sadness behind it, and every bit of humor is more like a half-hearted attempt to lighten the mood at a funeral than something you're actually expected to laugh at. Even then, this is a lovable flick that dozens of truths about life, relationships, and the career rat race can be drawn from. The Apartment doesn't lack for heart and distinguishes itself with brilliant moments scattered throughout the movie. This is what many of Wilder's weaker films obviously wanted to be, and there's something great about Jack Lemmon's all-around good guy character and the arc he experiences. Technically, this film is well executed, and like many of the director's flicks, The Apartment has aged quite well. Now, if you know Wilder, odds are this film is at least in your top 3 for the guy, and with good reason. It's distinctly his and exhibits many of the trademarks he's beloved for. So, I'm gonna come clean and explain why I consider this a somewhat overrated movie. I imagine this is the ranking choice I'm most expected to justify, so here are some negatives. Some, albeit pretty minor, but still legitimate issues that keep me from falling for this movie the way others have. Number 1, the establishment of Lemon's character is pretty heavy-handed. It's one thing to be down on your luck, but Lemon is introduced as one with a pitifully sad existence. The cold was a bit much. Number 2, the movie's lack of focus is a little disheartening. As I said, people love this movie for many different reasons. That's because for a large part of the movie, it doesn't know what it is either. It makes sense when you learn that Wilder and his writing partner pretty much made the story up as they went along. It comes together okay, but I'm not confident saying the movie is distinctly about one thing over another elements of the film. If I had another complaint, it'd be that the dialogue is occasionally too clever for its own good. But this is still a fine, even great movie. The pros of this film are so great they overcome the movie's issues to the point of this movie edging out a flick I enjoyed quite a bit more. If you haven't seen The Apartment and this movie sounds interesting, by all means check it out.
Where's that big story to get me out of here?
1 year, and what's our hot news? A soapbox derby. A tornado that double-crossed us and went to Texas. An old goof who said he was the real Jesse James, until they found out he was a chicken thief from Gallup by the name of Schimmelmacher. I'm stuck here, fans. Stuck for good.
At number 4, we've got Wilder's seemingly resurrected masterpiece, as prior to its inclusion in Roger Ebert's Great Movies list and the Criterion Collection, it wasn't all that highly regarded, which is strange because the movie is fantastic. We've got an interesting story with a moral and a deliciously dark tone. What more could you want? As has been mentioned, Wilder loved exploring the scheming side of humanity, and Ace in the Hole takes that to a logical next step, resulting in a turn for the bleak and a much more serious movie than you'd expect from the director of The Major and the Minor. Personally, I think this tone could have improved some of Wilder's other films, and here it's appropriate, allowing the movie's message to better hit home. Throughout, the malicious nature of media and the public's appetite for sensationalism is explored, painted in a negative way through a captivating series of events. Given that Ace in the Hole is significantly more focused than The Apartment, I consider it the director's most meaningful film, having the most off-screen relevance.
Wake up the kids, Nellie. They should see this. This is very instructive.
The movie looks great, Kirk Douglas portrays a fantastic character, and Ace in the Hole is a serious contender for Best Wilder Screenplay. Incorporating dialogue few would be sharp enough to spit out in a real-world situation, but doesn't feel synthetic while you're watching the movie. For example, the concluding lines to this film, perfect, but of course we're not going to spoil that here. Just watch the movie. Most of Wilder's films that deserve serious praise are included in this video's core top 10, but there are 2 more of note I'd like to mention. Five Graves to Cairo is indisputably a propaganda piece, but it also has moments of genuine tension and holds itself in a higher regard than most of Wilder's films. It's a well-made movie with a couple interesting scenes and a distinct older Hollywood feeling to it. Can't recommend this one as readily as I would the flicks I've ranked higher, but Five Graves to Cairo is next in line for those who've seen Wilder's best and just need more. Likewise, I understand the appeal some find in Stalag 17, which is a comedy set in a German prisoner of war camp during World War II. Generally, I consider war and comedy a losing combination, but Wilder pulled off this project better than one could have hoped. The finale is decent, and Holden gives a strong performance alongside classic director Otto Preminger, who portrays a Nazi who reminds me quite a bit of Christoph Waltz's character in Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards. So there's some fun to be had with this film. As for dishonorable mentions, many of Wilder's films aren't all that great. On IMDb, I gave out quite a few 5s and 4s to films he directed that make me question if watching his entire filmography was really worth the effort. But hey, nobody's perfect.
Well, nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's 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 perfect. I gotta work it.
And Wilder movies that deserve recognition for being outright terrible are rare. We've got 3 of them. No one likes Wilder's final film. Even the director himself felt it was poor. In Buddy Buddy, Wilder comes off as unaware of his audience, uncomfortable as a director, and altogether out of touch. Lemon and Matthew give it their best shot, but the latter is miscast and nearly every joke falls flat. At its core, this is an entertaining story, and the director's experience only lets him flounder so much, but the tale is painfully forced, awkwardly prolonged, and lacks energy. Talk about awkward, ill-fitting musical numbers. Let's just take a moment and be glad that Wilder never took up another musical after The Emperor Waltz. This film is one-dimensional, forced, and fails to impress in any way, shape, or form. But there is one film, one horrible film, beyond the mediocrity of the weaker Wilder efforts, an actively terrible movie that actually deserves a casino carpet embroidered with naked grandma's ugly DVD reissue cover like so many of the director's films got. And the worst part is, it's not gonna get one, cause apparently the 7-Year Itch is some kind of classic. This movie is a pathetic imitation of its source material, a movie whose sole purpose is sex and innuendo, and yet it doesn't deliver that way in the slightest. I understand that this is mostly due to censorship issues, but these ideas are so core to the story of a man fantasizing about and eventually having an affair with a young woman while his wife and children are gone on holiday that after these issues were discovered, the film should have been dropped without further discussion. Even then, if you're going to make this movie, which is destined for mediocrity, you can find talented actors, insert subtle moments with meaning, write a script that isn't 120 some odd pages of pure shit. This movie has perhaps 30 minutes of content stretched to 3 times that length through the intolerable ramblings and fantasies of actor Tom Ewell. To begin, this man belongs in an insane asylum. The majority of this film's dialogue is composed of the character talking to himself in the way you'd speak to a friend maybe 20 yards away. To pull off this film's dialogue, one would need the voice of Morgan Freeman and the talent of Daniel Day-Lewis, but Ewell still falls short of the mark we reasonably could have expected of him.
I can explain everything. The stairs, the cinnamon toast, the blonde in the kitchen.
Oh, wait a minute, Dickie boy. Let's just take it easy. What blonde in the kitchen?
Wouldn't you like to know? Maybe it's Marilyn Monroe.
Yes, it is, you idiot! What kind of stab at humor is that? I completely understand why your family needed a vacation from you. What about Monroe? She's sexy and iconic and stuff, right? Yes, she's very attractive. If this turd does something well, it's making her come off that way, but she's also an absolute airhead with nothing to her character beyond. She's hot. Her character literally doesn't have a name, and while this may have served a purpose in the play, here, it doesn't. You know that scene where she walks over a grate and it blows up her skirt? Iconic, right? No, you moron, it doesn't even exist. This picture is iconic. In the actual movie, the scene is horribly executed and hardly involves the skirt flying above Monroe's knees. Bad movie through and through. Now back to the top 10.
You want to know who killed Dietrichson? Hold tight to that cheap cigar of yours, Keys. I killed Dietrichson. Me, Walter Neff. Insurance salesman. 35 years old, unmarried, no visible scars. Until a while ago, that is.
Double Indemnity is film noir, embodying the genre with its classy lighting, tone, and slick narration. This movie belongs in black and white, and it knows it. Furthermore, it's filled with great tension and an intriguing premise. Like in Ace in the Hole, here Wilder understood the inherent appeal of everyday folk engaging in appalling acts of mischief. We love the notion that something as exciting as the plotting of a heist or murder could be happening in the basement of the nice folks 2 doors down, because it breaks the sense of everyday monotony and asserts the audience into the story. And Double Indemnity is an easy film to get wrapped up in. Scene to scene, the plot twists like Witness for the prosecution, the visuals impress like The Lost Weekend, and the movie maintains the edginess of Ace in the Hole. Unique to this film is the intriguing relationship between the 2 leads. Interesting enough on their own, but together an even greater treat. The dynamic between the 2 is full of uncertainty, passion, and shifting control, which is great.
She's a femme fatale.
While the lines the actors deliver could come off cheesy in a modern flick with different expectations, here they land with confidence and blend wonderfully with the overall feel of the flick. Also, the way Double Indemnity presents its characters as more or less normal people allows the audience to relate to the struggle and feel as if everything that happens to Walter and Phyllis is happening to the viewer. When the car won't start, it's almost as if your car won't start after you personally committed a heinous crime. When Keys comes to visit, you're the one hiding behind the door built with no regard to fire code. And this causes some of the movie's most praiseworthy scenes to practically boil over with tension. Needless to say, this film masters what is pretty well the standard film noir, to the point where there's little reason in attempting to make another movie like this one after this one without switching up the formula in some major way. When the perfect genre film has been made, is there a point in trying again? Well, sure, because film noir is sick, but I see Double Indemnity as maxing out the potential of the genre tropes. Tracing backward, you can't really pin down and put into words what makes Double Indemnity so appealing. It's cool because it has cool shots that are cool because they're cool, but this movie clicks. It's a tried and true winning combination and a classic among classics.
Say, Joe, tonight's the night, isn't it?
I'll say.
What? No, tonight's the night we get paid. That's good.
Why?
Oh, I got a filling among my back teeth. I got to see a dentist tomorrow.
Dennis, we've been out of work for 4 months. You want to blow your first week's pay on your teeth?
Well, it's just a filling. I have to be gold.
Yeah, that would be gold. How can you be so selfish? We owe back rent. We're in for $89 to Moe's Delicatessen. 3 Chinese lawyers are suing us because our check bounced at the laundry. We borrowed money from every girl in the line.
You're right.
Well, of course I'm
First
right.
thing tomorrow, we'll pay everybody a little something on account, huh?
Oh, no, we don't.
We don't?
No, first thing tomorrow, we go out to the dog track and put the whole bundle on greased lightning.
Let's talk about one of the greatest comedies ever. A movie that shows the potential of Wilder's style of humor, and of course, a film that has aged quite well. Some Like It Hot takes place in 1929, a full 30 years earlier than the movie's release, and this gives the film a sense of immortality I refer to as the Back to the Future effect. When a filmmaker is dedicated to capturing the culture, look, and feel of an era other than the respective modern time, the result is often a movie less bogged down by the dated elements of the time in which it was made. Additionally, we can appreciate a glamorized 30s America that's more fun than films made in that era would probably have portrayed it, in the same way we love Back to the Future's bubblegum version of the 50s. But as a comedy, this choice benefits the movie even more, as jokes about prohibition or mobsters are just as funny today as they were 50 years ago. Now, that's not to say this movie is without its stated elements.
Jerry, you can't be serious.
Why not? He keeps marrying girls all the time.
But you're not a girl, you're a guy. And why would a guy want to marry a guy?
But to this day, it's still very funny, and Wilder's habit of pushing social boundaries helps Some Like It Hot feel much less G-rated than most comedies of the day. Keep in mind, this movie was condemned by the Catholic Church's Legion of Decency. While humor is subjective, this movie's jokes are quite clever, referencing earlier events, employing crafty wordplay, and poking fun at the absurd circumstances of the film, which itself is a creative series of events. Like Wilder's 1, 2, 3, Some Like It Hot keeps the laughs coming, and even if you feel some of the humor is lame, you can't argue that it wasn't intelligently fashioned. For example, look at the way this movie portrays mobsters as over-characterized wise guy types, in a way parodying gangster flicks. The way these characters are exaggerated is entertaining, if not hilarious, and Some Like It Hot does a good job maintaining an atmosphere of light entertainment. But it would be little without its stellar on-screen talent. Tony Curtis portrays an ultra-slick character, a majorly cool fella, and somebody you could see dames lining up for. The guy's so confident, his unrealistically sharp comments feel natural, and he gets away with dressing up and acting like a woman for half the movie. The ever-likable Jack Lemmon approaches this challenge in a thankfully different but equally effective way, presenting himself as more a charismatic victim of circumstance, the dweebishness, mannerisms, and personality of which most can relate to. Also, their comedic timing is dynamite, and the way Curtis cracks jokes in particular comes off almost improvisational.
It's on account of these shells. That's my hobby.
You collect shells?
Yes, so did my father and my grandfather. You might say we had a passion for shells. That's why we named the oil company after it.
Marilyn Monroe's acting ability leaves something to be desired, but here her ditziness is her character rather than her lack of one, and I think we can all agree she does an okay job portraying the type.
I'm not very bright, I guess.
Clever, pre-written dialogue doesn't hurt either. Given that her dysfunctionality as an actress on the set of this movie is legendary, the editor deserves props for a great job cutting around her blunders so well. I love this film's jazzy, high-energy score that's not only tailored to the film as a whole, but helps emphasize particular beats within each scene. Plus, it further establishes the time period as a bustling, high-energy, all-around wonderful time to be alive. As far as fundamentals are concerned, I can't say much more than this movie is well executed. Having the basics covered is something you can almost always count on Wilder for, and this is no exception. I mean, how many comedies have been nominated for a cinematography Oscar? I like Some Like It Hot like you hot it should like some, so if you're looking for a surefire winner at your next slumber party, a flick to enjoy with the fam, or a way to forget the pain of your cold, lonely existence, I strongly recommend this film as Wilder's finest comedy.
I pegged him as slightly cuckoo, too. A stroke, maybe. Come to think of it, the whole place seemed to have been stricken with a kind of creeping paralysis, out of beat with the rest of the world. crumbling apart in slow motion. There was a tennis court, or rather the ghost of a tennis court, with faded markings and a sagging net. And of course she had a pool. Who didn't then? Mabel Norman and John Gilbert must have swum in it 10,000 midnights ago. And Vilma Banky and Rod LaRock. It was empty now. Or was it?
From its overture's first tone, Sunset Boulevard is focused. As the tragic tale unfolds, each scene is filled with purpose and evident precision. Early on, we're hooked by intriguing circumstances and unanswered questions, but a fascinating story keeps our eyes glued to the screen. To choose Sunset as Wilder's best film is, to me, a no-brainer, as it has most all the greatest things about the two closest runner-ups in a single package. While it's no comedy, this film's dialogue is easily as clever and well-crafted as some like it hot's witty punchlines, and the director's masterpiece is just as stunning and cool as Double Indemnity, with equally complex characters. Even considering the great commentary movies like The Apartment offer on society, Sunset at least holds its own in dealing with themes such as fear of obscurity and Hollywood's imperfections. Furthermore, Sunset Boulevard is a film perfectly complemented by its age. It's not that it's good for its time, rather the look, tone, and style of the movie are exactly the way they should be for this particular story. Because of this, Sunset Boulevard is a rare movie made better by the fact that it was written and filmed in an era we consider classic Hollywood. It's something great that couldn't be captured today. In fact, I believe one of Wilder's own films, released 28 years after this one, illustrates this point quite well. Fedora deals with many of the same ideas as Sunset Boulevard, from an aging Hollywood star falling into obscurity to the melodramatic dialogue to the conclusion style, and this film oddly also stars William Holden. I'm not pretending these two projects are on the same technical level. Wilder was well past his prime with the latter, but essentially these are two very similar flicks. Yet Fedora falls much farther below Sunset than the gap in their technical achievement should alone cause. Outside the black and white noir atmosphere, this kind of story loses its appeal. The dialogue becomes cheesy, the movie comparable to a soap opera. However, with the look, Sunset maintains an atmosphere of cool, Double Indemnity-like. Gloria Swanson's performance becomes Oscar-worthy, and the twisting and turning of the plot has us eagerly engaged. I'd like to add that Sunset has a perfect tone, and its haunting feel never wavers. The use of Holden's chilling narration serves this end even further. Additionally, the movie has a sense of glamour that's easy to feel nostalgic about. There's no getting away from the fact that classic Hollywood is appealing, and people who like movies are bound to like movies about movies. Gotta mention that as someone who can hardly tell two quote-unquote classic movie scores apart, Sunset Boulevard delivers a magnificent, distinct score that brings the greatest things about the film to even greater highs. Beyond that, there's little left to be said about this movie that hasn't already been proclaimed 1,000 times over. The script, cinematography, tone, emotion, acting, direction all get A+, and Sunset Boulevard represents to me the pinnacle of not only noir, but what golden age Hollywood had to offer. Billy Wilder was a filmmaker who understood how to make an entertaining movie beyond fundamentals. To him, a movie was little without a touch of humanity, and if your audience didn't connect through humor, intrigue, or some other form of immediate satisfaction, you had failed as a director. As a very commercial filmmaker coming from an era where films were essentially consumed and then all but discarded, he expressed opinions that suggest he valued an audience's experience while watching a film more than how they're impacted by it afterward.
I despise doing fancy schmancy shots. I cannot stand it. If anybody in the middle of a picture suddenly grabs his partner's knee or hand and says, look at that setup, picture's dead to me, because he knows that there was a setup. He knows there was a camera, he knows there were people on the dolly pushing back and forward. I try to involve them and be part of what is happening on the two-dimensional thing, which is the screen.
Wilder wasn't all about making a film that deserved analysis or even one that was worthy of repeat viewings, although many of his films are, but if he could have a crowd laughing, cheering, or otherwise enthralled with a picture, he was satisfied. The flicks ranked highly in this video represent films that score well in what could be considered lesser categories, but it still adds up to a brilliant movie. The director once made the controversial statement that a filmmaker shouldn't be too clever for an audience. audience. While I'd cite great filmmakers like Stanley Kubrick or Ingmar Bergman as major counter-arguments that not everyone should take this course as a director, the fact that I've deemed Wilder worthy of a top 10 list suggests his approach has some merit. I'm a firm believer that there are many ways to make a great film, and the reality that this director's movies are still discussed, analyzed, and enjoyed as much as they are expresses the value of a surface-level movie and shows that yes, it's okay to argue that Shaun the Sheep movie is just as much a contender for Best Movie of the Year as Spotlight or Ex Machina. Furthermore, Wilder teaches us the power of giving an audience what they want, and provides a pretty good idea of what that is. His films were even greater back in the day for the way they pushed boundaries, challenged the status quo, and people love a bit of excitement. This same effect can be achieved through a basis in reality, where films like Some Like It Hot, Ace in the Hole, and Double Indemnity all have what are essentially everyman characters. The director told stories that were wacky in execution but potentially plausible, and that's where much of the raw entertainment derives. Altogether, Wilder's body of work is like a set of principles for making an entertaining film, and I find that incredibly valuable. And that's Wilder. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about clobbering that like button for me, and note that there are additional videos available through on-screen annotations or links in the description. Also in the description you'll find links to assorted pages cited throughout this video and another to an annotated IMDb list ranking every Wilder film from best to worst. As part of this channel, I watch dozens upon dozens of films each month, uploading a near weekly log and longer videos like this one as frequently as possible. So if that sounds like something you may be interested in, consider subscribing. Also, feel free to comment on the films of Billy Wilder or suggest future list subjects in the comment section below. Thank you for watching this video. My name is Austin. The binge goes on, but for now, I'm afraid this is